All right, everybody. Today we're going to cover one of my favorite presentations. It's called Grab Your Pencils. We're auditing our search experiences together. This is a presentation purpose-built for the B2B manufacturing and distribution market. So we're going to talk all about B2B search, some of the best practices we've identified across more than 1,700 customers in the manufacturing and distribution space. And based on our learnings more broadly across 17,000 search customers of Algolia. We've combined this with our own experience in implementations and delivering great search results for end users, and with some external consultancy from folks like Baymard and other UX experts who have consolidated a huge amount of knowledge. So all in one place, and we're going to talk through it together. So what are we going to cover today? Today, we're going to cover first a quick introduction. So why are we here? Why is search even important? What is it? Why audit your search in the first place? Why listen to us specifically? And then we're going to get into the audit and the examples. This is going to be broken out across 4 key sections: the search bar UX, the overarching relevance, the results page and filtering, and category pages and browse experiences. But first, there's a workshop that goes alongside this content. You can use this QR code to get a copy. And that will get you to the rubric that we're going to walk through as a part of this presentation, and that you can walk through alongside us as you're auditing your own experience for whether or not it meets these criteria. So let's dig in. First, what in the world is so important about search? Well, as we all know, the buyer landscape is changing a huge amount. And in B2B specifically, I think the best metaphor for the search bar is the sales rep. So this is a person who you can ask, what can I find? What is available? What looks like this? Can I find this part? All of those questions that would go to a sales rep often in an e-commerce experience go directly to the search bar. When I'm looking for something specific, when I'm trying to learn about what you sell within a category, and when I'm looking for what's available to me, all of those questions happen through the search bar and through category browsing experiences, both of which are controlled by the system that maintains your relevance and your merchandising and your search and discovery experience. And 92% of B2B purchases start with search. That's per Forrester, and 68% of B2B buyers actually prefer to do their own research online before they even end up eventually calling a rep. 2/3 of B2B buyers prefer remote interactions or self-service over human interactions where they're asking a person a question. So this is growing and growing and growing. Every year, this number gets greater. Accenture says that 19%, almost 20% of B2B buyers switch vendors due to lack of e-commerce functionality, and 15% switch vendors due to a poor website. And often they're switching to Amazon, they're switching to a marketplace, they're switching to somebody who's significantly more digitally native. And for those folks who do provide outstanding digital experiences to their buyers, they're more than twice as likely to be chosen as a primary supplier. And we know that these exclusive supplier relationships are one of the most valuable commodities in the B2B distribution and manufacturing markets. That choice is often driven by how strong is the experience across the digital platforms. Lastly, a decade ago, right, B2B e-commerce was a nice to have. Today, 18% of B2B sales are already running through e-commerce, with another 24% transacted through rep-assisted e-commerce. And the idea that I want to leave you with here is that rep-assisted e-commerce is probably, even in the offline sales that your brand is already powering, it is probably a huge contributor to the rest of the human-powered business, even if those people aren't eventually transacting online. So search, super critical. And why listen to us? Again, we'll be really quick here. Algolia has 1,600 plus manufacturer and distributor customers, folks who are across all kinds of spaces, from tools to components to building materials to water treatment to instruments to the kinds of products that eventually get stocked in grocery stores. We have powered 1.75 trillion searches a year. We are the second largest search provider, second only to Google. We're 4 times larger than Yahoo, Bing, Yandex, and DuckDuckGo combined. We've indexed more than 30 billion product records, and we are regularly delivering 100,000 plus queries per second. There is some additional material if you want to check out our expertise on B2B. Our B2B e-commerce site search trend report from the most recent published in 2024 is a really nice place to go and get a little bit better sense for the most important things that we believe drive great e-commerce experiences in B2B manufacturing and distribution. So first, let's talk about how we understand whether or not our search is performing. And I'm going to give a quick overview to one of the best ways to get a gut check for this. So first, I'm going to show you what a summary analysis looks like when we walk folks through a Google Analytics review or an Adobe Analytics review or whatever system is powering their commerce analytics. And I show this specifically because there's a lot of things that a lot of folks don't necessarily realize are important to their business until they see the numbers sitting behind them. And search in particular, because it can sometimes be a smaller number of users compared to the overarching user set of how folks are using your website. Sometimes folks underestimate the amount of revenue driven by search and browse. And sometimes they don't underestimate it, they just don't know the breakout, right? So in the case of this particular company, this is an anonymized report, search was responsible for about 1/3 of their revenue, but only touched a little under 1/6 of their sessions. And so, if you're just looking at sessions and just looking at how users interact with the site and not breaking out things like what are our conversion rates? What's the revenue driven here? What's the difference in AOVs? You don't really find your opportunity. And so one of the things that we recommend is very, very quickly getting to the point where you're segmenting your e-commerce analytics between people who use the search bar, people who primarily browse through category or catalog experiences, and making sure that you understand what the benchmarks are between those audiences, because huge swings in between those different audiences can show up differently in your general analytics than they would if you looked at them on an audience-specific basis. And so we recommend that everybody does this. And there's a very simple way to just get a back-of-the-envelope calculation. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be the most incredible, detailed report, but you can get to this level of insight, at least with a bit of imprecision, but very directional, just by going into your normal e-commerce reporting and segmenting it. You can see here I've got a Google Analytics window up, but you can do this with effectively any platform, segmenting it by site search status or by an interaction with your site search page or a site search event. You create these segments, you layer them on top of your normal e-commerce analytics, and as a result of that, you're able to split your business and really understand how different things are performing. And you can apply this to all of your existing benchmarks, conversion rate, AOV, bounce rate, and you want to know these things because that's going to be what drives eventually the insight that allows you to experiment and hopefully helps you make the case for investment in improving those experiences, running experiments, and starting to impact things for your eventual end customers. So once we've established the baseline for how search is performing, we understand that 92% of B2B purchases start with search, right? And oftentimes, at Algolia at least, we see the same problems across a lot of these search experiences. And here's what they are. This is what I think you're likely to find when you do your own analysis. One, you're going to find latency. So it's too slow. It reloads the page. Clicking on a filter goes and reloads the whole search result set. It just, as you're typing, you're not able to get results. And so it doesn't feel quite as intuitive. It doesn't feel performant. Maybe it takes 3, 4, 5 seconds to load a search results page across a big catalog or a category page. Latency is a killer of digital experiences. And we constantly see that folks are struggling with it, especially when they've tried to build their own search or when they're using a provider who's maybe on the lower cost end, just trying to fill a bucket. 2, search as you type experience in empty state. So we very commonly find that people do not have a search bar that reacts to what the user is putting into it beyond very basic query suggestions. And when I say basic query suggestions, I mean, I'm not telling you to implement a search that tells me what other terms I might want to search for based on what I put in the search bar. That's one component of running a great search experience in the actual autocomplete menu itself, which is what we call that entire experience. But that autocomplete menu, it should include a lot more, and we're going to talk about what it should include. But it also should include an empty state. It should be personalized. There's all kinds of things that we can do to improve the search bar itself and the experience when someone arrives at it. 3, rich query suggestions. So I just told you what it looks like when someone's doing this poorly, right? They just have the words that you might be searching for based on what's in the catalog, or maybe even worse, based on a dictionary or something else. That's bad. But rich query suggestions means that we're providing really robust sets of data within that search bar query suggestions experience. And in order to do that, you need a hyper-performance search platform. But once you do it, you get folks a lot more or a lot more ability to explore the catalog via that search bar itself. 4, intent detection. So landing on the right page is difficult already, but as I start to compound and add more data to my query, maybe a category page, maybe a facet value, maybe a filter that somebody might apply, I really need to be able to see from the search bar that that's happening and make sure that they get to the product set that is relevant and not just break the search bar because they search for something it doesn't know about, or even worse, bring you to the wrong product when you had something that was absolutely perfect matching those filters previously. 5, merchandising inconsistency. So when someone searches for, let's just use a product category that everyone can understand. Maybe I'm a tooling provider and I'm searching for screws. If I get the same results on search when I search for screws as I get on the category page, that is good. If a merchandiser or somebody on your marketing team has gone in and they've curated that category page experience and done all this work and spent all this time trying to improve it, and that is not reflecting on the same experience for search, then wasted effort, right? Because I have a huge, much higher converting audience in my search audience usually than on category pages. And yet all the work that I've done to curate that category is not getting communicated into the search bar. We need consistency between those two things. And then finally, of course, front-end UX. So we want this to be immersive. We want it to be beautiful. We want it to be based on best practices. There used to be a time when B2B providers could get away with this because, there were a little older school and folks didn't have quite as high of expectations. Not the case anymore. Amazon and a lot of new age competitors, Watsco comes to mind as somebody who's done a very good job. They've brought some of these legacy industries into a new age of UX, and that matters quite a bit. So let's talk about how we audit our own search on the front end. Like I said, we're going to break this into 4 buckets. So we're going to talk about the search bar UX, overarching relevance, results page and filtering, and category pages and the browse experience. And we're going to start with the search bar UX and logic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the requirements, talk you through what these are. You can follow along on your own site as we're covering them to see whether or not this is something you do. And then on the next slide, we'll show some examples of people who are doing this well, and we'll move through the presentation in sections just like that. So first of all, does the search bar have a hydrated empty state? What do I mean by hydrated empty state? I mean, when I click on that search bar, just like Pentair, one of our customers in the water treatment and water processing industry, many are familiar because maybe your pool at home or your hot tub at home uses Pentair filters. This is a very, very large provider of those kinds of products. Now, when I click on the search bar at Pentair, I get a welcome experience. It's almost like I walk into the store and somebody says, hey, this is what we sell. This is what we have here. When I click on that search experience, that's the best way to think about what should happen, right? It should welcome me. It should show me products. It should give me a sense for what I can search with this experience. And that's what we mean by hydrated empty state. Second, does search latency meet expectations? As I'm typing, are the results changing? So if I add a word, does it start to give me more specific results in that search bar? If I click the enter key and move to a search results page, how fast is it that those results are presented back to me? What if I click on a facet value, right? All of those things matter. They need to happen fast. Third, is the search bar responsively designed for an in-app or a mobile browser? And the reason that I say this is because many of us sell to folks who are out in the field. So this could be somebody who is selling to a contractor who's working on somebody's HVAC. It could be someone selling to plumbers. It could be someone selling to basically anyone who's out in the field. We can pretty much assume that when they need the part, they are not going to have a laptop in front of them. And because of that, we need to make sure that we have a mobile experience. It doesn't have to be an app, right? We don't need some crazy iOS thing. We just need a responsive web app that's going to be able to present me results even if I'm on one of those smaller screens in a way that feels coherent. And there's lots of examples for how to do this well. Algolia has many, but that app experience needs to be just as good as that experience on the site, especially if you're focused on customers in the field. But even if you aren't, most of our web traffic at this point is mobile traffic. And maybe a lot of B2B buyers are ordering from behind a computer. That's definitely true, but they're often researching from their phones. They're often looking at the site from their phones. So this is really, really critical. And then 4, does the search bar have a scope selector or category suggestions? And you can see again in our example here from Pentair that we're looking at category suggestions, suggested search, popular pages, right? So not only are we showing products, and if we were to start typing in this search, we would start to see those products change, but the same is true of the categories, the suggested searches, and the popular pages. So that's the basics on search bar, UX, and logic. Now let's move up just a little bit. All right, guideline 5. Does the search bar provide query suggestions, search history, and autocomplete suggestions? So again, all of this is before we even get to the results page. On that search bar, can I see what it is that I may want to be querying? That's the suggested searches right here. Can I see the history of things that I've searched for in the past? There's lots of examples of Algolia customers doing this, but it's very, very common. And the reason you do this is so that they can get back and just revisit that behavior, especially with reordering driving so much volume in B2B. Autocomplete suggestions, again, this is providing suggestions that change based on what the user's typing in, and products that change based on what the user's typing in. That's even better than autocomplete query suggestions, is when you can actually show the products themselves. 2, are autocomplete product suggestions separate from query suggestions? By that, we mean we're showing the products on the left. We're showing the suggested searches on the right. You can take either path if you're the user, but it's a performant and beautifully designed experience. Are autocomplete suggestions unique and not redundant, right? You don't want repeated entries. You don't want the same product with 2 variants showing up in that search bar. And then finally, do autocomplete suggestions correct for spelling? Again, we got people out in the field trying to replace a valve, and they got fat fingers. So we need to make sure that they're able to find what they're looking for, even if they type in one letter wrong or drop an L or add a dash to a part number or take a part number away. But we're going to talk about part numbers very specifically later on, right? But it needs to be reflexive and it needs to be able to correct for spelling. Here's a great example of rich suggestions. So on the Mono site, right, you've got products on the right, you've got categories, ideas, and advice, suggested searches on the left. And up here on the very left-hand corner, you can also see suggested searches contains one of my historical searches, which is something that I had searched previously on a different visit to this site. Now let's talk about overarching relevance. So when we say overarching relevance, we mean how easy is it to find what I'm looking for textually, right? How flexible is the engine and how well is it returning those results back to me? So first of all, does the search match product titles? Easy. Yeah, most people's does, right? I would hope that yours does because that's what people are searching for. But in some cases, they're just searching pages or it's not a really well-built e-commerce search and this isn't always done. So we need to make sure it searches on product titles. The search also needs to recognize when someone searches for a category value. That needs to be out of the box, ready to go for them. It's not a redirect. I search for the category value. Maybe you choose to redirect them to some of your bigger landing pages. But what should happen is I get to an SRP and that SRP is ready to go with that category information. 2, because there are lots of nested category situations in search and you don't want to be redirecting everything back to category pages. Are categories suggested? Again, we're just trying to help the user to navigate that textual relevance experience and let them know what they're going to be searching for. And you saw great examples of that in the last 2. Do category searches return relevant results? So yes, I'm matching on the category value, but what happens when I do that? Does it take me to the category page, in which case it's probably just going to be consistent with what you've done there? Or if I search for a category, is all lost on the merchandising front? And do I just get a list of products based on some random order? And when I do that, are those the products that I really want to be showing in a category experience? Can I search for a category name and a qualifier at the same time? What we're talking about here is, can I put on, let's say, the tools category, can I say hand tools? Can I say tools drills? Can I say tools for something? As I add terms, does it break my search or does it keep looking and keep refining? Can I search for a feature or a size or a job to be done, right? So if I'm searching for something like, outdoor nails, or if I'm searching for something like a 2x4 or a 2x6 or a 2x12 or a 20x20 filter, what happens when I search for those kinds of things? Does it break my search or is the search able to respond to it? And then finally, can I search for non-product content in my primary search bar? Super big deal. And we see this across lots of customers. People are coming for research. They're coming for spec sheets. They're coming for product safety information. And when they use that search bar, they need to be able to find all of it in one place. Give a great example here of MSA safety. So they're showing pages, they're showing categories, they're showing products, and they're showing suggested category page searches. And the reason that I think this matters so much is because in B2B, even if I'm going to purchase through a rep eventually, I might be coming to the site looking for some of the things that I need to be able to qualify that purchase. And so the search bar really needs to be your guide to getting that information. Here's another example, I think a better example for some of the non-product documentation. So in this case, we've searched for a suspension clamp on Hubbell Electric, which is a very large supplier of electrical components, formerly a part of GE, now a part of the new split out GE Current. And what Hubble is doing here is they've got a federated search across all results, products, web pages, and documents. And on that document search, you can see here that I'm searching textually on multiple attributes of the documents because we are actually running unique searches to each of these kinds of content just from one search bar, which is a really nice way to run a search experience. And this way, the user is going to be able to find what they're looking for. And you'll notice things like the facet values are different because there's a different kind of thing coming back to this page. These aren't the normal product facets. And all of that is automated with Algolia's system. All right, let's continue on overarching relevance. So does the search bar support search for part numbers? Okay, this obviously in B2B matters a ton. Almost in a lot of cases, we've seen folks where 50, 60, 70% of their search volumes come for part numbers. The alternative to that is often category pages in B2B. We see a lot of category page searches. But part number is obviously critical to match. Can I match a partial part number? So if the part number is SA-H1840, can I match H1840 instead of SA-? Can I just include SA- and see what's going to be on the list after I do that? What happens if I do add things like dashes? Can I include or omit them? Can I have spaces instead of dashes? What if I use a different character? What's going to happen with the search experience? And then finally, can I perform a compatibility search? So if it's needed, can I select my machine, or can I do a year, make, model situation? Or can I do a, maybe I've got different kinds of engines sitting inside of tractors and I need to be able to limit just to the parts that match that. Am I able to overarchingly filter my entire commerce experience just on things that are going to be compatible with that thing? And that gets applied to my search too. Here is a good example of the partial part number match that I'm talking about with Hubble, but you could basically break this any way you wanted. You could add a dash, you could add a space instead of a dash, you could add no space and no dash, or you could start to add characters even after the part number, and it would still help you to partially match and show you where it's matching. So you can see here I'm matching on two part numbers in the list. One is SA-H1840. Second, and let's be honest, this happens to a lot of us sometimes, there's two different kinds of part number references inside of this index. Well, even though that's true, Algolia has matched on the H1840, which is obviously a related product. You can see here it's a Chance brand sales drawing. Both of them are exactly the same brand. And then there's a -8 on the end of this, which means it might be a more specific part. And I'm still matching against that partial part number, and I can use the search results to refine further as the end user. So really critical that we flexibly handle those part numbers. Okay, results pages and filtering, moving into the next section here. So after I press enter, does the search bar persist on the results page? And I can go back or I can go forward to my next example. But if we look at Hubble, I've already run a search, but that search bar is still there. Why? Because I might want to change my search now that I've seen what all the results are going to look like. That is a really nice feature to be able to use to not have to go back a screen or reload a page and lose conversion opportunity. 2, are results federated on the SRP? So that's what we were just showing with the multiple different sections of documents, pages, products. There's all kinds of things you may want to put into a federated search experience. Your blog, marketing videos, instructional videos, safety information. It's whatever is most relevant to your users that you want to bring back in that global experience. Are no results searches a dead end? So if I search for something and it doesn't actually come back with anything, does it just say, sorry, no results found? Does it suggest things? Does it start taking apart the query to see if I can just match on little parts of the query instead of the whole thing? How does the search bar handle no results search? And if it's a dead end, that's bad news, and we need to find a new path to send our customers down. Does filtering a search or changing a query trigger a page reload? This is my biggest pet peeve in all of B2B search. I know it seems like such a tiny thing, but you run that search, then you go and you need to click a filter. And by clicking that filter, I've reloaded the entire page. I got to wait 3 more seconds for this whole thing to load up in front of me. Maybe I'm on my phone and it's even longer. And all I was trying to do is take the list of things that you gave me and make it smaller, right? So theoretically, they all exist on the page. I shouldn't have to go make another call to go get that. But oftentimes, especially older search experiences, do. Does filtering a search or changing a query trigger a page reload? So when I said filtering, right, the other side of this is if I actually go and make an adjustment to my query while I'm searching. Here, for example, if I added to this term, I shouldn't have to press enter. I'm already on the page. I already have the results. Let's bring back the right results without having to wait through another conversion decentivizing step. And finally, are pages configured to load more or quickly add additional results? We've all heard of endless scroll. We've probably all spent a little bit too long on TikTok or Instagram, Threads, or somewhere that does this, X, all of these places. The truth is it's a very sticky pattern. And you don't necessarily want someone to have to click that button to go reload the page and get to page 2 of results. Again, you just want it to continue, and your search provider needs to be able to provide that full payload in order for you to do that, not just a paginated set of results. Again, these get into the details, but the unnuanced view is just whether or not I'm asking a user to click on a page number in order to get more results. Both should be available. Let's look at the results page and filtering here. So we've got persistent search again. So the search bar stays on kingarthurbaking.com even after I have searched. I've got federated results. Why does that matter? Well, King Arthur Baking is in the grocery products market, and they have some things that they sell direct, like the things you can see on this result. But they also have a lot of products that they only sell through grocery stores. They're exclusive distribution partners, right? All of that. So what they use their site for those users who are not trying to buy, is to be a source of marketing content, recipes, blogs, classes, right? This is a co-investment in marketing with their distribution partners. And so they have created a federated experience that has all of those different results types persisting. And then finally, additional results. So as I scroll through this page, I just continue to see results load as opposed to having to move to a second page. All right, let's continue on results page and filtering. Are the relevant sorts to your business provided on the SRP? So price, popularity and relevance, alphabetical. There's an endless list of other things that you may want to sort by, but how many options do I have? And do I have all the options available that I think make a difference for our users based on their buying behavior? And if you're not sure what they care about, just call them and ask them how they'd like to sort results, because you'll get some surprising answers sometimes. 2, are facets available for the core attributes required for the business? So categories and subcategories, measurements as needed, filters and sliders that allow me to select larger and smaller models or different dimensions. Price is almost always a filter that people care about. Availability and local inventory is very common across distribution models, especially for people who might have multiple options, where I might go pick it up, I might have it delivered to me, I might pick it up through a partner. All of those things need to be filterable in the experience based on how I want to shop as an end customer. Local inventory. So again, like if I have this on my site, but it's available in California and not Ohio, where this particular user is domiciled and their account lives, I need to be able to account for that somehow. I do not want them thinking they can buy something at their local distro center when actually it's only available in California. And then do facets reload the page or cause significant latency? We're checking on this 2 times, mostly because it is that important. You really don't want to be triggering these page reloads. Are facets dynamic and relevant to the result set? So by that, we mean if I search for a set of results and the facet values are there, and then I search for a different set of results, do the same facet values stick around? And if so, is that optimal? Or do we want facets that dynamically change depending on what the result set is that I'm bringing back to the user? That's what we want. We want the facets to change. We want them to show the counts of the different products on the results page. And we want them to be totally dynamic to what's going on with the query. Finally, are filters prioritized by query relevance, results volume, or another relevant metric? Let's take a look at an example here, just to make that one a little more clear. So the sorts we've already talked about, the unique facets. You can see here that I've got collections and I've got categories, and those categories have counts as well as the collections. Those counts are actually the sorting mechanism for this particular facet experience. So Ergodyne is choosing to show the things with more results before the things with fewer results, which is a general best practice across e-commerce UX. And the other thing that's happening is that this is dynamic. So if I had a different set of hard hats here, I would see a different set of categories, because that would be totally based on the experience of the results set. And then finally, we want to be prioritizing these based on how many results are actually present on the page, not based on how many total results are available in the catalog, because again, this user is searching for something specific, and we're just trying to make it easier to find. Let's talk about category pages and browse experiences. So first, are categories clearly navigable on the homepage navigation or from carousel experiences? So how easy do I make it to find my category browse experience? Sometimes this is buried in multiple levels of navigation menu, and you do not want that. It needs to be very easy to find the categories of products that I may want to shop. 2, Do category searches exactly match category experiences when browsing? Again, I just have this nightmare in my head of the merchandiser who has spent a week deciding how a particular category page is going to look. And then I search for the same term and I get a set of results. And maybe it's even the right set of results. There's just nothing taken into account from my own rules. So they need to be consistent. Can subcategories be filtered from the category page? So if I go to a category page, do I see additional filtering options that help me get down to even deeper levels of hierarchy, which is very, very common, especially among component suppliers? Are category-specific facet values available? So if I go from one category page to another, do I see different refinement options? Again, fairly simple to implement with good search, but something that not everyone does. Do facets work without reloading the page? I'm checking again, because we already checked on search, but this is true of your categories too. If I click a facet, I should not reload the experience. Are filters prioritized by query relevance, results volume, or another relevant metric? Just the same as search, right? So you're seeing this parallel between the SRP and the PLP, the product listing page. And that is because they're effectively anatomically the same. They're both just lists of products. So we need to make sure that these are true across both. And then finally, are pages configured to load more or quickly load additional results? Again, same as search. Let's take a look at the accessory page for Hubble. So category-specific facets. This is a responsive page, so it's going to move around. It's going to be easy to see on mobile. It's automatically prioritizing facet values depending on the volumes. All of these things are happening just like they would be for a search experience, and some other little tweaks. I like the different views that Hubble provides. Obviously, the sort options are there. I can see the hierarchy of categories that I'm nested into. And if I went up to this very top products bar, that would show me the full category hierarchy. Homepage navigation. So we talked about category page experiences that come from, a search or a click on that category, but oftentimes you have your top categories also harnessed within your front page experience. And so, as I'm looking here, I click on fall protection. Then I get to almost like a second layer of experience here because, MSA Safety understands that their users may have a couple of different steps they need to go down to get to the product catalog that they care about. I can treat that as if it's obvious, or I can assume, like many do, that my users are going to need a little more guidance. And so what they've done here is they've given me a chance to continue to refine my search, to see some top products in a carousel, and to give me a bit more refinement ability as I'm moving from the homepage into that category experience. Here's another example, just because it's sometimes nice to see lots of different versions of this. So visual browse is something that I really like for category experiences. And the reason for that is that, folks like electrical component suppliers, man, do they sell a lot of stuff. And as somebody who's, kind of been a hobbyist in this market in certain times, trying to fix something that I didn't want to pay a contractor for, God, is it hard to figure out what these things are called. So as you're looking at a list of, electrical component categories, it's really nice to be able to just see that this is the thing that I'm looking for. So I thought this was a nice UI for that further refinement. So I'm already in a category of breakers and fuses. This is the one that I struggle with particularly. And then within that category, I can see time delay fuses, general purpose, fuse holders and blocks, all these different things that are within that category. And I can see them as opposed to having to just read them and click. So that concludes our walkthrough portion of the basics. If you'd like the materials from this presentation, you can get them in two places. You can shoot me an email, or you can connect on LinkedIn, or you can just reach out to Algolia. I'm here, and I'm often a part of the conversations that we have with B2B manufacturers and distributors. Our new research for the B2B market is in the QR code attached here, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to walk through this session today. Thanks, everybody.